How's it going, everyone? Blake here, and a few weeks ago I did a video reacting to the first unveiling of the college football rankings this year, and a lot of you guys liked it, a lot of you guys enjoyed it, and I enjoyed doing it as well. Haven't done it the last few weeks because I thought the playoff rankings were pretty set in stone. I thought it was kind of obvious who was going to be in like the top 4, the top 5, the top 6, so I didn't think it was worthy of doing a video. But this week's rankings are going to be insane. Now, there's like 6 or 7 teams that are just in everyone's top 4. I mean, if you look at every top 4, whether it's with ESPN, Fox Sports, CBS, you name it, everyone has a different top 4, it seems. And it's not like it's the same top 2 or 3. A lot of people have Oklahoma at 1. A lot of people have Auburn at 1. A lot of people have Clemson at 1. These top 4 rankings this week are going to be insane, and I thought it's the perfect time to react to them. Now, while I wait for the top 25 rankings to come out, I think it's going to happen in like 5 or 10 minutes or so, I'm going to go over what my current top 25 is. Mainly so my top kind of 10-ish, mainly though my top 4. I believe 2 days ago I tweeted out what my top 6 was, and it's currently different than what it is now. A few days ago I tweeted that Auburn was my number 1 team, which I think you can make the strong case they should be a number 1 team, but then the more I thought about it, I thought about how Clemson did beat Auburn this year, so I am going to give the edge to Clemson at the number 1 spot because of that head-to-head matchup. But at number 2 I have Auburn, and here's why. I understand they have 2 losses, but in the last 3 weeks, they've taken down 2 of the number 1 teams. I don't care about the losses. The college football playoff is all about having the 4 best teams. And if you look at the teams now, I don't think there's any team in the top 6 that Auburn will lose to if they were to play right now. I think they're the best team in the country at the moment. Putting them at 1, I realized, is a little stretch, especially since Clemson did beat them earlier in the year. But Auburn, I think they should be at the absolute lowest 3rd, at the absolute lowest. But I think 2nd is more than fair. At 3, I have Oklahoma. I think behind Auburn, they're the next hottest team in the country. Baker Mayfield has looked fantastic. I think they're going to be at 3. Well, I think they should be at 3. But if they're at 1 or 2, I'm not going to complain about that. I think that's fair as well. And I have Wisconsin at 4. Now, I've been a little skeptical in Wisconsin this entire season, mainly because of who they've played, and they haven't played anyone. But the last 3 or 4 weeks or so, their competition has looked better, and Wisconsin just keeps winning. They're undefeated. They do have that game against Ohio State this week in the conference championship. If Wisconsin does win that game, without a doubt, 100%, they deserve to be in. So coming into this week, I don't think it really matters where Wisconsin is, whether they're ranked 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, it doesn't matter, because if they win this week against Ohio State in the Big Ten title game, they're without a doubt going to be in, unless for some reason they don't make it, and there's going to be chaos. At number 5, I do have Georgia. I actually have them over Alabama, and I just think Georgia overall, their resume is just better. I know their loss to Auburn was worse than Alabama's. Georgia has just played better teams. Alabama, I do have them at 6. I do think they are one of the best teams in the country, but when you look at overall resume, it is not that impressive. A few weeks ago, they struggled to beat Mississippi State. They needed like a last-minute touchdown to beat them. That game is not looking good for Alabama, and they did not look good this week against Auburn. So I think Alabama at 6 is fair. Being the way the committee is, I'm not going to be surprised if Alabama remains in the top 4. And then this is where we kind of get to the teams where I don't know what's going to happen. Penn State at 7, they don't have any shot of making the college football playoff. I do have Ohio State at 8. If they beat Wisconsin this week, I don't think they have enough to leapfrog into the top 4. The first episode of the Harris Highlight Show this year, I said they were going to have maybe 4 losses, and everyone attacked me on that. But when you look at some of these games, they beat Penn State by a point. They beat Michigan by a point. They've had some very close games, and they easily could have 3 or 4 losses at this moment. Now, I know they don't. They have looked good in some games, but Ohio State, I'm not high on them. Now, this is the team I want to talk about, and that is UCF, the Central Florida Knights. Or is it the Golden Knights? It's something with Knights. I am impressed with them. Now, they did squeak out a win against South Florida this past weekend, but mind you, South Florida, they are a very good team. They're one of the best non-Power 5 schools there is. But UCF at 9, and this is why I have them over Miami. UCF, they are undefeated on the season, and a lot of people question who they've played. Now, you look at their schedule, there's some teams that aren't good. They do have a win against Memphis, who's ranked. They do have a win against South Florida, who I think should be ranked. But the rest, not so good teams, but they've been convincing wins, whereas Miami, they have struggled against some awful teams. So because of that, I'm going to give UCF the edge, and I seriously do believe that if UCF gets a New Year's 6 bid, which I do think they will, I think they're going to impress. I don't know who they're going to play, but it's a hot take now. I think UCF is going to go undefeated the rest of the way. I think they're going to win this week against Memphis, and I think they're going to win in their bowl game, whoever they play. All right, but the top 25 now is coming out, and so far I got no complaints. But pretty much 25 through 10, it's going to be a pick'em. It's not going to really matter at all because it's not going to affect the playoff rankings, but it is interesting to see as well, like, where teams are ranked.
This might be one of the more interesting ones. UCF, by the way, 11-0. We've mentioned where they've played. You know, if we had the old BCS system right now, that UCF would be ranked ahead of Ohio State.
So they got UCF at 14, and I don't like that at all. They're getting disrespected. It's exactly like last year's Western Michigan. I mean, UCF, like, I get it. They haven't played that many great teams, but they're undefeated and they've looked fantastic doing it. And the fact that Miami's going to be in the top 10 still, I don't know. I think UCF should be above Miami. I really do. TCU at 11, Stanford at 12, Washington at 13. I like that Stanford's above Washington because they did beat them, but Washington at 13. Washington is not the same team as last year. They are not as good. They have just not impressed me at all. But Notre Dame, man, just 2 weeks ago or whatever it was, they were in the college football playoff rankings, and now, just like that, they're all the way down at 15. So it just goes to show how a matter of weeks just completely changes the course of your season. Now, the interesting thing here is TCU at 11. They do have the Big 12 title game this week against Oklahoma. If they beat Oklahoma, I don't think TCU has enough to leapfrog, no pun intended, into the top 4. I mean, they're going to have a lot of things go their way this week. So TCU at 11, I think their playoff hopes are kind of shattered. If they were like at 9 or 8, I think they'd still have a shot, but there's no way they move up 7 spots this upcoming week. And number 10, so USC's finally back in the top 10. The thing is, if they were to play Washington State right now, and if they were to play Notre Dame right now, I think they would blow out both teams. So it just matters whenever you get a team and how hot they are. But USC 10-2, it seems like it's been such a letdown season, but 10-2, I mean, if you ask any USC fan, most of them would be happy with a 10-2 season. I'm sure they're still going to get into a good bowl game, whether it's like the Fiesta Bowl or one of those ones, but they had so much potential this year. And I think they're one of the 8 best teams in the country. It's just those 2 games really hurt them, and they haven't really been able to recover at all. And Penn State at number 9. I picked them to win the Big Ten coming into the year. Their losses this year have been absolutely just, I mean, they've been close. What was it? They lost by 1 point to Ohio State. I think by 3 to Michigan State, right? So they have 2 losses this year by a combined 4 points. You hate to see it. I mean, that's just tough right there. And then Ohio State there at 8. See, I just think that Penn State's the better team. I think they're a better team than Ohio State. Ohio State, I mean, a few weeks ago, they lost by 30 to Iowa. As I just mentioned, Penn State's lost 2 games by a combined 4 points. I don't know. I don't think Ohio State should be 8th. I think even USC should be above Ohio State. I think Ohio State being at 10 is actually more than fair. And Miami at 7. So, I mean, they were ranked 2nd last week, right? So they fell 5 spots to 7. But that was a brutal loss. I mean, Pittsburgh, they just dominated them in that game. And Miami fell to 7. Now, Miami, I don't know what's going on. I mean, I have not been sold on them the entire year. And then they go on and they just have that game against Notre Dame. They look impressive. And now all of a sudden I'm thinking maybe they are a top 4 team. It'll definitely be very interesting to see, though, with their ACC matchup this week against Clemson, because I think Clemson wins easily. But if Miami somehow does beat Clemson, is that going to be enough to get them into the top 4? I mean, they are going to be, 11-1 on the season with a win against Clemson. So that's going to be very interesting to see. I personally don't think Miami will leapfrog. I think there's probably at this point going to be 2 SEC teams, but who knows? We'll have to wait and see. I don't agree that Miami's a top 4 team in the country, but if they beat Clemson, then maybe they'll prove me wrong. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens if Miami wins, because a lot of people are pretty much shooing in Clemson. I think they're like 10-point favorites. So if Miami could somehow get this win, that's going to cause a lot of chaos, which is more exciting for me. All right, and they're about to unveil the top 6 right now, and number 1 is Clemson. That was my updated number 1 coming into the day. I agree with it. I think Clemson has earned their right back into the number 1 spot. I mean, that Syracuse loss was just a fluke, but Clemson the last few weeks have looked fantastic. All year I've been saying they're a top 4 team, so at number 1, I got absolutely no complaints there. And as they just mentioned, they have 9 wins this year against top 40 teams, so that's impressive. But now for the exciting part, to see how the rest of these rankings turn out. At number 2, Auburn. Well, so far my top 6 is looking pretty good this week. And like I said, everyone is going to make the case that a 2-loss team should not be number 2, but what they've been doing the last few weeks is truly remarkable. So Auburn, now who would have thought at the beginning of the year when Clemson played Auburn, that was going to be a future 1-2 matchup. I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head what the rankings were, but I'm sure Clemson was at 3 or 4, and Auburn was, I think they were in the low teens, like 17, 18, 19 range. I'm not entirely sure, but how about that? We had a 1-2 matchup this year in the regular season. Also, I think that's what helped Clemson as well get the number 1 edge, is that win against Auburn. Oklahoma at number 3. I like that too. So far my top 6, it's looking good so far. I think, like I said, I think Oklahoma is currently the second best team in the country. Well, they're playing the second best football right now. And Baker Mayfield, that guy's a man on a mission. I would not want to play him at all. I think he's the Heisman frontrunner right now. And I mean, at the moment, if these rankings stay the exact same, it's going to be an Auburn-Oklahoma matchup for the first round of the college football playoff. And wouldn't that be a game? I don't know who would win. I don't know who I would pick, but that'd be a game to watch. Hopefully it's at the Rose Bowl, so since I'm going to be home, I can go to it because I would love to see that game. I want to see Baker Mayfield play in person. But yeah, so far, this top 3, I have no complaints as of yet. But now the interesting thing is, what are they going to do at number 4? Are they going to give Wisconsin the respect, or are they going to keep Alabama and Georgia in there with 1 loss? Okay. And Wisconsin is at 4, how it should be. They finished the season 12-0, and now they got this week's matchup against Ohio State. But like as I mentioned, it didn't matter where Wisconsin was ranked coming into this week. I mean, they should be top 4 without a doubt, but if they were 4, 5, or 6, it doesn't matter because if they beat Ohio State this weekend, they're without a doubt going to make it in. So Wisconsin, great to see them in the top 4, and Alabama at 5. And Georgia now at 6. I almost had my top 6 completely right. Almost had it. It doesn't really matter either, especially for Georgia, because Georgia at 6, if they beat Auburn this week in the SEC title game, they're going to be in the top 4. So it doesn't matter if they're 5 or 6. Now Alabama, this is where it gets interesting. If Georgia wins, would you keep Alabama out of the playoff? Because it's going to be tough for them to move up. Because if Clemson wins, if Oklahoma wins, and Wisconsin wins, those 3 teams are in, and then whoever wins the SEC game, they're going to be in as well. So I think the only way Alabama gets in is if one of those teams loses their conference title game. But how about that? I mean, Bama, they win their first 11 games, they lose the final game of the season, and they don't even get a chance in the SEC title game, and they might miss out on the college football playoff. So wow, now, that would be something. The college football play without Alabama. I mean, like I said, this is going to be an insane weekend of games. This top 6, this top 7, this top 10, it doesn't mean anything right now because next week it is going to be completely different, which I am more than excited for. I can't wait for this weekend's games. But yeah, those are my initial thoughts on the rankings, 1 through 10. No real complaints at all. I just think UCF, they deserve to be in the top 10, and that Ohio State, they're too high at 8. What are your guys' thoughts? What are your thoughts on the top 4? What do you think is going to happen this week? Like, what do you think the final top 4 rankings are going to be? Because I still honestly have no clue. I have no idea because I don't think any of these teams that are in the top 4 right now are locks for their conference championship at all. I do not think. These 4 teams that are currently in the top 4 right now, they might not even be in there next week at all. Like all 4 of them, they could potentially lose their conference championship game. So we're going to have to wait and see. It's going to be an exciting week, but thank you guys for watching so much. I will most likely be doing a reaction video for the final college football playoff rankings because I'm sure those are going to be very hectic as well. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment below, and if you haven't already, what are you doing? Make sure you subscribe to my channel. Great quality college football content here.